Hello, let's get straight into this look inside video. So today we're going to be very excited about these videos. So I'm doing this video and another video, and they're all about looking inside the Comprehension Ninja Inference and Beyond books. Now, this book, the low key stage 2 version, is what this video is going to be all about. I'm going to do another video alongside this about the upper key stage 2 version. So these books are unbelievable. If you've got the other Comprehension Ninja books, the non-fiction versions and the fiction and poetry versions, you'll know that these books are fantastic for everything to do with reading when it comes to supporting generating text or finding really high quality text and then having thousands of appropriate questions to go with it. Really quick to use. And there was something that I wrote because I wrote these books because I couldn't find what I needed when it came to I want a resource, a comprehension lesson, I need a high quality text, and then I need to spend all that time developing the questions that go with it and making sure that they're right and everything that goes with that. So that's what these books do. They resource that. Now, these books are fully designed to sort of complete the puzzle in that other two sets, the non-fiction set and the fiction and poetry set, are all to do with retrieval of information with some sequencing in there. The other part, which SATS completely hinges around, is inference. And inference is a far more difficult skill for children to understand. So having these books complete to resource key stage 2 is going to be crucial, because what the books do is resource every sort of inference question type that children will encounter when it comes to SATs, and gives us thousands and thousands of examples with key stage 2 SATs like texts. So that's what this video is all about. I'm so excited about these books. They are absolutely fantastic, and for basically the $24.99 RRP, just to get that out there, for less than £50 we can resource key stage 2 with a resource that isn't really available anywhere else. These books are that good. Okay, so the idea is today with this video that I'm going to take you through. We're going to look inside it, and I'm just going to show you some of the subtleties that you will be able to put to use in class or discuss with SLT, or maybe you are an SLT member thinking, will these books be for us? So let's take a little bit of a look inside. So here we are. We'll nip straight into the contents page. So if I just try to zoom in a little bit here, as you can see, each of the books has 20 really high quality texts. All right. So a lot of the texts are written by myself, and we'll look at some of the subtleties, but there's also more than half of the texts pretty much are written by well-known authors from the world of education and literacy. So as you can see, if we have a quick look through here, we've got texts like Burley or Bella's Den from written by Burley Doherty. If I scan through and I just take a quick look, because it doesn't say in the contents, we've got poetry from Matt Goodfellow, who also wrote that Year 6 Leavers book, which lots of people. We've got Maz Evans, Oh My God. We've got, The Unseen Witness of a Rat. That is mine. Lost Tidings of Ballyran. Let's have a look. That was the upper key stage 2 book. So let's have a quick look. We've got Bella's Den by Burley Doherty. We've got On Charlie Q. Ralph with the Great Food Bank Heist. Let's have another quick flick through. We've got My Friend the Alien by Zanib Mayan. We've got Isadora Moon, text by Harriet Muncaster, one of my daughter's favourite authors. So it was great to get that in there for a bit of fun. Let's have a look. What else have we got? We've got poetry by Joshua Seagal. We have some more text by myself. Well, I really like this text, Wildsmith Into the Dark Forest by Liz Flanagan. Really like picking that one out. And then a bit of Kid Normal again, a little bit like Diary of a Wimpy Kid by Greg James and Chris Smith. So there's a whole range of texts by a variety of authors, which is wonderful to see. So we can know that we've got a huge range of texts, but not only fiction. As you can see here in the video, we've got things like Bella's Den, we've got Ava's Gone, Pet in Class, we've got Wildsmith, we've got, what else? My Friend the Alien, we've got Mischief on the Moors, which was all fiction. Ping and the Missing Ring, fiction. But then within there, we've got some poetry as well. Some of these texts are poetry. So we've got The Jungle Personified. We've got, where are some of these other ones? Where I Live, I think, is poetry. And there's definitely another one in there. And then we've also got non-fiction, which we've got some twisted fiction. So I'll show you these twisted fiction ones, which I really like. And they add something different as well. It's all about perspective. So let's take a little bit of a look at what a typical text looks like. So if we say Bella's Den, what do we get with Bella's Den? So we have a fantastic, so there's a lot of information here about how to use the book, the different question types. So if we just skim back, we've got how to use the book, a little bit of a breakdown, and the different question types that we've got. So we've got simple inference questions, sentence level inference questions, and I'll just show you what these look like. This information here just goes through it, exactly what I've just said. But then we have this wonderful looking text. So this is Bella's Den, one of the first ones in the lower key stage 2 text. So again, really nicely presented on a big double page. So again, this will photocopy nicely on A3. And I know I'm only small at the moment, but nice big A3 text. You could reduce those down to A4 as well if you needed to. So again, very readable, and I think for the children, that also feels a bit like SATs as well, because when they've got that reading booklet, it's quite large, isn't it? Quite bulky for them to work with. So there are some similarities there as well, which is useful. So again, the first set of questions, the idea is that you would use this text potentially over the course of a week or as part of a reading unit. And then you've got a range of questions. You can use this in so many ways. So the first set of questions that come with it are just simple inference questions. So again, we've got questions that are being directing the children. So look at the paragraph beginning. So look at the paragraph, very typical of SATs. We must have been in the den for almost an hour. So the question is, how can you tell the den was small? So again, this real skill of prompting the child to look for this part of the paragraph that begins this way. So they have to have knowledge of the paragraph to go back and find that paragraph in the text, which is up here. So they're navigating the text, and then within there, they're looking for an inference, which, how can they tell that the den was small? So that might have been a word, that might have been a phrase most likely. So if we read that as an example, we must have been in the den for almost there. Wasn't much room for both of us to lie down. So we sat and crouched together with Bella's sleeping bag pulled across us. So the inference there, what's given us the inference is, there's two options really. There wasn't room for both of us to lie down, or we sat and crouched together. Essentially, either of those would be a logical inference, and that would get the children the mark. But all of these questions here are all prompting the child to go back to the text, find that inference, and write down the answer. So that's fantastic. And again, I haven't really ever seen a resource that does this, that just then has such a high quality text and then a whole range of different question types that are all linked to inference. So for me, I'd be using these simple questions to introduce children to inference, prompting them, and I'd be able to model that on the whiteboard very, very simply. With these questions, children, simple 1 markers, the question is telling us where to go. We need to go back to that and find the information to find the inference. Very, very simple. So it's really effective. Again, the next question types, we've got sentence level inferences. So we've got a nice mix here of straightforward questions, some presented as multiple choice, which you can see here. And again, just subtle variations. So again, I touched Bella's arm and she let out a little breath of, yes, I've seen it too. How can you, and then the question, how can you tell that the narrator and Bella are trying to be quiet? So again, with these questions, the sentence has been provided here, like they would be in the SATs. So again, the child doesn't necessarily need to go back to the text with these ones, because the sentence that we want the inference to be drawn from is already here. And again, you can see that here, little sentence level but vocabulary based inferences. The cub scrambled up the bank one by one and slid back into holes. What does the word scramble tell you about how the cubs moved? So we're making inferences about how the children or how the cubs have moved. Fantastic question types, very, very common in SATs. And again, great for discussion, great for lessons, and again, questions that would take a lot of time to curate yourself, which in the world of teaching, which I know is very, very difficult or very time consuming. Next question type, we've got this suggests. Again, very common question type in the SATs. So again, these questions have the sentence already there. So if we look at this one, it was as if he was locked onto me, reading my mind. I didn't dare move or breathe. What does this suggest about how the narrator feels when the fox looks at them? So again, this is classic question type that, again, children get in the SAT, where children who aren't that confident are just going to guess, most likely, and tick one of the boxes. But it's teaching them over a course of 4 years, year 3, year 4, year 5, and year 6, that these aren't a question that's just guessed at. Okay, logical inferences. What does this suggest about how the narrator feels? So how is the narrator feeling when the fox looks at them? The narrator feels calm, the narrator feels scared, the narrator feels happy. Okay? It was as if he was locked onto me, reading my mind. I didn't dare move or breathe. Okay? So the logical inference there would most likely be this: the narrator feels a little bit scared, potentially. Mostly from, I didn't dare move or breathe. So again, you can have those discussions with children, but there's, again, 4 of these question types, and you wouldn't be throwing all of these questions at children all at once. That the logical thing to do would be to go, we're going to teach simple inferences to begin with. Okay, so these simple questions, I would use this text, I would use these questions, and then I would maybe use another text and use their simple questions, and use another text and use their simple questions. So we're really honing in on children just making simple inferences. I wouldn't be jumping from this one to this one to this one to this one, because that's not going to be useful. Okay, I'd maybe have a 2-week unit of focusing on specific question types. But again, the beauty of these books is that they can be adapted to fit into pretty much any reading system. You're probably not going to use them every day. You maybe use them once or twice a week to focus on teaching a specific skill and specific question type when it comes to inference, blended in with the retrieval ones of fiction and non-fiction, and the poetry ones as well. So again, if we move through, then it moves into these more classic inference questions, typical 2-mark questions where the pupils are going to need to go back to the text. Again, look at the paragraph beginning. So all of these questions are directing the child back to the text. It gives us that sentence that we're looking for. It was as if he was locked into me, reading my mind. So the child needs to go back and find that. Then we've got the question. How can you tell that the narrator feels frightened when the fox looks at them? Give 2 ways. So they're basically providing 2 separate pieces of evidence. This would be a 2-mark question for the child to evidence 2 pieces of inference. Dead simple. And again, lots of opportunities for children to do these. Nice thing about these is these could be easily cut out, I suppose, stuck into books if that's the way you want to work, or they could be worked on directly. And then again, this typical 3-mark question where we're just looking for 3 straight inferences. So again, look at the whole text. This part's very important. Symptomatic of SATs. How can you tell that the narrator feels amazed by the fox's behaviour? So basically, from the whole text, the child is needing to provide 3 pieces of evidence that infer the narrator feels amazed. Okay, so that could be feeling happy, joyous, something that they said, something that they do, 3 pieces of information. And again, very typical of SATs. Lovely. Then these very, very specific questions. And these question types come with every text. So every text has all of these question types. So again, evidence, 3 marks. Now these are the what impression questions. Again, you'll recognize these typically from SATs. What impression do you get? And again, these are the ones that children struggle with, not because they can't do them, but mostly because they just don't see them often enough. So the book provides that. Again, what impression? Using evidence from the text to support your answer. And again, it's the child understanding exactly how to answer this. So again, what impression do you get of the narrator's feelings about the night? Now, normally, the impression is just a single word, quite often. The impression might be that they were happy. And the other impression might be that they were, from remembering the text, they were scared. Because it may have been that they were a little bit scared during that. And again, these are typically 3-mark questions. So they would be looking for an impression, and then a piece of evidence and a piece of evidence. And from answering that effectively, the children would get 3 marks based on the mark scheme. So again, here's another one. What impression do you get of the fox cubs? again, one of the impressions might be that they were happy, the other one might be that they were playful. Then the children need to find a piece of evidence to suggest that they were happy, and then the other one playful, and that might have been that they were running and biting each other, which I think it refers in the text. That would be a logical piece of evidence that would support the impression. Very, very simple. And normally these are 3-mark questions in the SATs. They're not difficult to answer. Normally what is difficult is a lot of the children haven't seen them often enough. So these 2 books are going to allow you to spread that experience over 4 years, so when children get to SATs, they know exactly how to answer these question types, because they go, it's one of those questions. They're actually very, very easy. Okay, dead simple. And then again, we finish off with some of the other domains to make sure that we've got that full holistic overview. We've got a summary style questions in multiple choice. We've got a sequencing style question, which you would see in SATs, and then a prediction type question. Again, in SATs, these only formulate very, very small amounts of marks, so that's why we've only dedicated very, very small amounts of questions to them. Okay, so again, and all of them in multiple choice format. So again, with every text, you're getting a huge amount of questions. We've got high quality text, again denoted here that we've got a nice fiction text. Then we're rolling down into simple questions, sentence level inferences in various formats. We've got this suggests. We've got evidence-based 2-mark inferences, evidence-based 3-mark inferences. We've got 3-mark what impression style questions, and then we've got summary, sequence, and prediction style questions before we move on to the next text. So again, as you can see here, I'm not going to go over this for every text, because that's what you get for every text. In the first, let's have a quick look. In the first 8 texts, and I'm going to show you the difference between part 1 and part 2. So in part 1, we get exactly the same. Another non-fiction text, then we get all the same inferences, inference style questions. So if we go through to part 2, which I think was text 9, so I'll just show you these ones while we skim through it. So one of the nice things that I've looked to do is create these fictional mix between fiction and non-fiction. So it all depends on the perspective. So this is very much sort of a non-fiction text in the sense that it's about a red blood cell, so non-fiction really, but it's been written in the style of a diary entry. So it's these nice mixed variation texts where actually we've got something that is a non-fiction text, subject knowledge from the curriculum, but it's been written in a diary entry from Ruby the red blood cell, which again is really nice. It's going to support the curriculum. It's quite pupil friendly, and it's written in the, after an exhilarating ride, I arrived at the lungs. So it's a different way of exploring a familiar topic, which I think is really nice. And we've got a few of these in this book. If I just quickly run through, we've definitely got Journey of the Red Blood Cell. We've got The Voice of Vesuvius, which is talking about Mount Vesuvius, but written from Vesuvius's perspective. I think we can just skim to that one shortly. It's just here. So if we just nip down, here we go. So I am Mount Vesuvius, standing tall and proud, watching over the city of Pompeii. So this text is really nice because it's written from Vesuvius's perspective, which is an unusual one because normally it's from the people of Pompeii. Written from Vesuvius's perspective as the event happens and how the mountain potentially feels. I won't spoil the text from you. And what it can see and feel and hear, which again is a really nice way to look at a typical historic event rather than just writing a straightforward recount of Mount Vesuvius erupting, which is really common. So we're just trying to put those in different perspectives. Now with these texts in section 2, Vesuvius's voice is one of these examples. We have the text, and then we don't actually have 8 pages of questions, we just have 1 page. And what this one does is like an overall overview, where basically we have all the different question types on 1 page. All right, so we're really being able to then test the children on all the different question types that they would encounter with some subtle variation. So we've got the simple questions, we've got the sentence inferences, we've got the this suggests, but only 1. We've got evidence 2-mark question, two marks. Then we've got the 3-mark question here of the what impression style question, and then we finish with a summary question. So again, we can use this as a bit of an informal assessment to see which question types children are struggling with, and then we can then go back and teach them so that they can improve. Okay. So again, there's more of these. So again, the next text then becomes Isadora Moon has a sleepover, and then we have this every question involved type thing. Another text, the Wild West, then all the question types. So this one moves through quite swiftly. So we can use the book in different ways. Again, a little bit of poetry, the jungle personified. Then we've got a whole range of all the different question type the question types that link to inference. So we've got some really, really nice variations. We've got the part 1, text, lots and lots and lots of questions. And then we've got part 2 where we've got a text, and then we've got 1 page of questions where we're testing really here how well children do on all the different skills within inference, which is really important. So there's a huge amount of ways that these can be used. And then again, we have the answers at the back. All right, so again, supporting this. Well, what I would say with the answers is we've just tried where possible to create the more simple and logical answers. So with retrieval, it's very simple. The answer is the answer. With inference, that's why the mark scheme that comes with SATs is huge. We can't do that in this book. We would lose text at the expense of the mark scheme. So what I would say is, as you mark these, yes, you're going to use the mark scheme to save time, or the answer section, but if the child has provided, one of the examples I gave on the first one, in the Bella's Den text, if I just skim back through, even though it's a bit annoying on the video, if I landed on the perfect spot. This question here, how can you tell that the den was small? Well, there was actually 2 bits of information, really, wasn't there? I'm not sure what's in the answer scheme, but here we had, it was here, wasn't it? There wasn't much room for both of us to lie down. Like, for me, there's 2 there. There wasn't much room for both of us to lie down. And then there's so we crouched together with Bella's sleeping bag pulled across us. Now, the fact that this one contains crouched and this one says there wasn't room for much both of us, that tells me that it was small. So there's subtle variations there. So again, as a teacher and a user of these books, I wouldn't be suggesting that, yes, absolutely use the answer scheme to mark, and if it's obviously wrong, fair enough. But if the child, if my answer scheme says there wasn't room for both of them to lie down, and your child has put, so we crouched together, I would be inclined potentially to give them the mark to a certain extent. Because remember, again, we're not using these books to test the children. You can. I've done that. Especially with the back-end texts, I would be giving children these texts, and then I'll be using this to sort of not test but assess where their weaknesses and strengths lie, because that's what these pages can do. Very, very simply. Okay, so that's basically the book in a nutshell. The book they're absolutely fantastic. They're going to save countless hours for teachers, and ultimately what they're going to do is they're going to enable children to be far more familiar. Now again, some people will just use them in year 6 potentially, but there's a huge opportunity there to embed both of these books from year 3 to year 6 and have children absolutely nail inference so that it isn't this alien subject. I think there was a text, wasn't there, about my friend the alien. So that inference and the different skills within inference aren't alien to them when it comes to SATs. Okay? And it's going to help them in so many other areas. And again, the beauty of the books is that we have fiction, we have non-fiction, we have poetry, and we have that twisted sort of fiction, like I said, when it comes to The Voice of Vesuvius or The Diary of a Red Blood Cell, that give a nice little twist on curriculum style subjects. So as I said, the books are really, really fantastic. If we just nip back to just me, I think, there we go. As I said, Comprehension Ninja, Inference and Beyond. I genuinely think these books are going to be amazing over the next decade for people, for schools, for teachers, for pupils. they're going to have such a big impact. And as I've said, there aren't really anything else out on the market that does that. I know there's thousands of schools around the UK and the world that use the other Comprehension Ninja books. So these complete the series. And as I said, there are just 2 of them: lower key stage 1 and lower key stage 2 and upper key stage 2. And there is another video about these. So definitely look to get your hands on them. As I said, I think on the website, on my website, you can get both books discounted to about £39. So again, £39 for these 2 books is just ridiculous. And it's not about that, but again, everything that a school invests in does cost money. So it's not going to cost you thousands and thousands of pounds. It's going to cost £40 to buy both the books. And they're going to make such a big difference for teachers and such a big difference for pupils. And ultimately, the school benefits from better SATs results, because the SATs are made up of all those juicy inference questions that have lots and lots of marks. So I hope this look inside video has sort of helped. I'll leave some instructions in the link to this video about how you can get your hands on the books. Email me using the details in the description if you have any questions, and we can sort that out. But these books, by the time, if you're watching this video, these books publish in the future on the 11th of September 2025. And if it's beyond that, then these books have already published. So again, I hope the video was useful. There is an accompanying video for upper key stage 2, which will go through some of the texts in there, and again, some of the features, which are exactly the same. The only difference, if you don't want to watch that video, the only difference between the books is the texts are slightly longer and slightly more complex in this version, and there are just slightly more questions in some of the different areas, just to meet the demands of what pupils will be able to do in a set amount of time. So that's it. Get your hands on Comprehension Ninja, Inference and Beyond. I hope you enjoyed this look inside video, and I'll see you in the next one. And just to finish, please make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. There's always lots of videos about the books, about the resources on the website, and just general teaching hints, tips and information that are going to help you in your teaching journey. See you soon.